Hey guys, I'll be ready in a sec. All right, give me a minute, guys. Get a little more coffee, and that'll be good. Yay! All right, we're ready to go. All right, so I have some notes I want to go over publicly. So let's I've been playing with this, changing things around. Let's make sure I'm actually on the right mic before we begin. No, right mic, cool. I just want to go through this. When you have these new issues and music's on, okay, all right, okay. All right, cool. Music's off. Music's off. Thank you. All right, let's turn this on for a minute. Let's put this volume. I always turn the volume off so I don't hear the beeps and all the other stuff, but let's turn that off. Let's turn that on for a second. I just want to go through this. So whenever you have a new issue, and you break bid, which is the VWAP of like the first day, you have to just watch it. You have to pay attention to it. It's really a big deal. The fact that you can't get over 40, I think this is a really big deal, and I think it's a real problem for this company. And I would imagine that this thing's going to get absolutely smoked. So I'm constantly looking at this thing, trying to figure out how to put a position on to short it, like a real size. I'm just going to give you that, like, you will see it in every single name that does it. Like, you can't miss one. People say, oh no, this name's different. None of them are different. None of them. When you first break that VWAP, you're toast. Like, that's it. Like, you've lost the pack. And it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter the name. Once it's there, and that's it. And you can't unsee it. Like, it's like, my eyes, but like literally it does not matter. And the reason I'm just bringing it up for you guys is because this one's doing it. You could tell me this time it's different. Okay. But it's there and it's magnificent. So it does make your life a lot easier. I'll start with the basics here, because I think that's really where you should go. If we take a look at Tesla, I'm going to clean this all off, drop this down. I want to get to Tesla, but I want to do this because I keep forgetting about it. You are colliding here. You are having a death cross. I would just go back and take a look at other death crosses and see how they act. I would also take a moment to just kind of spend some time and look at what you're seeing in regards to these breakout levels. And are you breaking those breakout levels, or are you holding? I know a lot of people are looking at this thing, such as, some of these levels, and going, all right, well, I don't really see like the panic to people are puking this out. I'll tell you where I do see like a completely busted chart on this stuff is here. I don't know why this is the other one's good and this one's bad, and someone's going to explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. But this is in a lot of trouble, like a lot of trouble. And once you broke that, that was it. You can see from all the way back here from 22, support, resistance, support, resistance. Like, you're probably heading back down, I think, to like 800 or something on this. And I'm just going through this because I was looking at charts. I'm like, my God, this is so obvious that you're heading back. See, whenever you break these rising wedges like this, or you break however you want to refer to it, your target always becomes the low point. Whether you get there or not, it becomes your target. So I think this thing could be triple digits again. I was looking at like ETFs to short. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll short one of the ETFs out there, but I wanted to get that out there. Let's just start with the Qs, and let's just start with our levels on a real simple basis. I would watch yesterday's close, like the previous day close on Friday, like a hawk. It fit perfectly with where we were. So all they did was walk us all the way back up and go from there. Yesterday's price action, a lot of people are just like, well, that's what it does because it's the end of the quarter. No, it just doesn't go up because it's the end of the quarter. If it went up because it was the end of quarter every time, you know what we would do? Hold on. What do you got for me, John? Happy Tuesday, John. You know what you would do? You would just wait with all your money until the end of every quarter, and you would just buy, wouldn't you? So the idea that every quarter you just go up because of the JP Morgan collar, like, I'm not telling you to not look at that stuff, but to think that it's like that simple, that this happens on this day because of that. No, they actually even put more money to work ahead of it for what they're going to do in the future. So just understand that. Are they unwinding core positions going into the next quarter? Sure. Could they be unwinding their puts that adds pressure to lift the market up? Sure. But these things of if then it's not real. Man, if you were long, it was real yesterday. Believe me, I was short a couple names. It felt pretty real. So when you look at stuff like this, just understand that. I think it's actually really good that you're pulling back this morning, and it's giving people the opportunity to kind of sense how that I would really focus on are just going to be that open, that close, this little level in here, and then here. I think they're your real levels, and that's where I would focus. I also think that if we took a step back and just looked at this from a daily standpoint, I'm going to get rid of my levels for a second, just start here. There's so much to go over. That's a piercing pattern. And even though you just barely made it over, it's still there. Now, the question that everyone's mind is, do you flip that and go higher? And I think you just have to go on the premise that, like, yeah, you could rebound up and roll back down. When you have a market, no matter how it's whatever reason why it's doing what it's doing, a lot of people just like, oh, we got to keep going down. You don't. You can go sideways for a while and then go back down. This was a massive move to the downside. We were actually fortunate enough to catch some of this bounce and make some money off of it. But now you have to start looking at this and going, are we exhausted? What level are we at? And if you are of the school of thought that, like, oh, we're going to go into a recession, earnings are going to miss, then you've just begun. Like, if that's your school of thought, you've just begun to get weaker. Like, if that's your school of thought, it's not mine, but we'll see what happens. But if you're like, we're contracting on the PE side because of the amount of uncertainty, 100% I'm in that camp. Have you gotten to a level where it's enough? We'll find out. It does seem exhausted. You should have had follow through yesterday. I find the argument that it's end of quarter. It's not the argument that I would be making. I'll just leave it at that. You could have. It was not end of quarter in Japan when they dropped 4%. So I just find that a very limiting argument. I look at this and say that you have the mother of all slingshots setting up, where when this drops like this and then you pull back and then you flip the open and you go, that's when you start looking at this stuff going, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. We're over the open and now we're pushing, and now we could slingshot back up to, this 480 level and then kind of go from there. I think that's where it gets super interesting. And then can you get back up here? And then what does that look like? And then, of course, you all have, what's up here, the 22, the 12, all of that in here. Again, for me, I would just really watch like the VWAPs and then how you're acting at those. I think that that's pretty significant. You start going back a little further. The October 23 is kind of an interesting spot because you stop dead there. So like, if you look at this, I'll clean that all off. I'll just show you. But that October 23 is like fascinating to me that you stop there, and it's a big deal, I think, because you stopped here on every. If you go and take a look at this, when you go through some of these other hourly things like on RSI that stopped here. So, if you go look at the RSI at these levels, you had hourly readings that were very similar to what you had yesterday, where you had like a 13, which is just insane on an hourly chart. And then you just got to that same level and you held. If you break it, you break it. What I think people were the fault that I run into people is like, oh, I'm going to wait till like I have to flip the 5 and then the 5 has to curl up. And then you're like, okay, well, you bought here. How'd that go? You can't use the same tools in the toolbox in this time. You just can't. Like there was a buy in here. It was so obvious, right? When they came out that Michigan consumer sentiment, and we made money off of it. And then you're watching people that are saying, oh, I'm going to buy here because this is, you can't use the same tools when you're pulling back. It's just, you're going to get subpar performance. You just are. So when you see this and you see things like this bouncing off of that kind of area, you just might want to pay attention to it. Does it mean it's going to work? It should, but that doesn't mean it's going to. And you just kind of play around with that as well. And you can see the SPY's acting significantly better. And what I always try to do is just look for these pain points and then see how you acted at them. And you can see like the next really big pain point would have been that April sell-off a year ago. You can't get over that. So that becomes an issue. And then of course, this one, if that one's there, then of course that one's going to be higher. I mean, it's not, it's not rocket science, right? So like we can see where that one is. We talked about that before, all these pieces of confluence. Now you have this leaning down on you. So you have a bunch of stuff there. I personally think that you just start looking at the sectors, like what's XLF doing? And that reversal yesterday was massive. And you're holding, like if you went through it and said, okay, who's holding their November lows from that? It's financials. And then you start looking at the SPY, and then I do this a lot where I'll look at the previous bar and you'll see how this is going. Watch. See how that previous bar is in the financials, like way deeper in there than like the SPY is. That's what you want to pay attention to, stuff like that. Names that you guys are going to ask me about, we'll just start doing them. You're going to ask me about this. Newsmax. I think somebody sold something they shouldn't have sold. I think somebody's trapped on the short side. That's my opinion of it. Newsmax is not that exciting that people had to get in within an hour and pay 7x here when this thing wasn't really even oversubscribed. So I do think there's something to that. And then we'll kind of go from here. You have a lot of data today. Michigan Consumer, ISM Manufacturing, and JOLTs. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see those levels pretty clearly. You usually see, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this. You usually see a retest of these pre-market highs on this kind of crap. And I'm not calling the company garbage. I'm just saying, like, you 10x'd in this period of time. It's not going to last, obviously. But it's definitely something to pay attention to for sure. It certainly is. So let's go from there, and then we'll see how that goes. But I don't know that you have to do anything about it. I don't know that there's much to say or do here. I think you want to trade it and look at those levels that I just marked off, but I don't think there's anything more to do with it. I tend to see these things come up. I did a trade last night, post-market in it. I don't usually pay attention to IPOs the day of. That, I'm just going to be blunt about it. That was a mistake this week for sure. And what I can see here, give me 1 second here. What I can see here is that was a mistake this week. It was a mistake. You should start looking at IPOs again. And that made me think of this, actually. And I'll just go down this rabbit hole for 1 second, then I'll stop. This is mimicking exactly the market, but on steroids. And the question really becomes, with this kind of thing, are we going to hit a point where we're going to start seeing more and more IPOs? So like OpenAI just raised, like they were just talking about this morning, something like $40 billion, something insane, right? From SoftBank. I have no idea what the SoftBank's thinking, but that we could do a whole video just on that. But so what about the public markets and liquidity? It's interesting. Like, why would they go public? Even Jamie Dimon was coming out and said, there's so many rules and regulations. If we could be a private company, we would. So I thought that was really very interesting. And the fact that they have no interest, it doesn't seem like OpenAI has any interest in being a public company. So we'll see how that goes. But you always want to look at what the public markets are doing. And there's some trades there on some of that stuff now. So I'd start looking at the public markets again. And the other thing that's going to start working a lot more, people are going to pay a lot more attention to, is anything in front of the FDA. Because anything that's an IPO or anything in front of the FDA, we don't really have to deal with the tariff issue. So they're going to start getting a lot more attention. Let's do a couple of these things. Let's look at the SPY for a second here and start looking at some of these levels, and then we'll go from there. I am going to start wrapping these up before 9. I'm going to have to. just so I can get prepped for the morning more. And I'm getting too rushed off the open. So as far as levels you're holding there, is that my big level? I mean, that's really the previous close from 2 days ago. I think that the fact is, like, do we get a retest of that low, that 47 or not? I don't think you're going to, but weirder things have happened. This 49, you went through it like butter, and then how long were you down there for? Like, when you really look at it, like, how long did you make it down there before you flipped it? 15 minutes, 20 minutes. By 10 o'clock, the buyer stepped in, rallies up, retests that low, and it holds. And then you just see this bar, this monstrosity, and it's just in your face, and then it just grinds all day. So, I mean, that's pretty exhaustive behavior, candidly. To me, it is. If I go here, I just can just do it this way too. It doesn't really matter. It's pretty exhaustive behavior. So that's how I view it anyway. I mean, they're the levels that I'd be paying attention to. It's not a coincidence that this Friday level, 930, this was Michigan consumer sentiment, for those that don't remember, that you closed right there, gap below it, and then that's that bar that you broke through at the end. So I do find that pretty interesting, that level of all levels actually held on Friday and then broke Monday as a final flush, and that might be it. You don't know if it's it or not. And so when people sit there and tell you, well, it's definitely not it, you don't know that. Nobody does. Like, they just don't. So it's funny when someone got mad at me yesterday in the comments because they're like, well, you keep saying that you don't know. I'm like, bro, nobody knows. I've been doing this 25 years at this point. Back in the day, and nobody knows. Like, you assess, and the only thing you have is the biggest thing that you have is what happened previously. That's all you have. Like, what did we hit here and we held? Like, that's all we're all doing all the time. When this piece of macro data came out last time, this is what happened. That's all we have is the past. That's it. Like, to go back and go off of. Nothing works better than it. Like, nothing. Let's do some more of these stuff you guys are going to ask me about. Tesla, deliveries are out this I think it's tomorrow or the next day. You're getting to the point where I don't know how much worse sentiment's going to get. I mean, they're firebombing the places, and it's kind of crazy, from my perspective. But when I brought it up, someone's like, "Oh, well, you like, I forget what they called me, like an Elon lover or something." I'm like, Jesus, I don't know. Maybe just it's not firebomb somebody we disagree with. I don't know. Let's just start with the basics. But I think you're at that point where you just have massive, negative sentiment for it. And when you get that far, the pendulum tends to swing. The question for me in looking at something like this, really, and I pay attention to that open, which ties directly to that close. That is a huge level. And you can also see this right here. But wait, there's more. See that low right there? These are all big levels. Because if you get through that, you got something. Rising wedges end in tears. Maybe you come back down to 250. I don't know. We'll say. I think that when you think about it, like a retest of that close is not that big a deal. We were already there this morning, and they're just playing around. They're just really playing around with us. So we'll go from there. But they'd be the levels that I would watch this morning. I'll do NVIDIA. I do think it's fascinating to me that you did what you did yesterday, because if anything should have got smoked yesterday, man, it was NVIDIA. Like, this should have gotten smoked, and it didn't. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, when you look at that, watch the volume too. Like, that's not a small amount of volume. It's just not. When you start seeing this stuff at the bottoms over and over again, you're like, no, someone's defending that. They're totally defending that area. Now, for how long? Maybe it's because the earnings from back here, back in the day, but that area is definitely an area of defense, and you can see that, right? Okay. So when you see stuff like that, you pay attention to it. Earnings, they were great. Rallies up, plays around that area. Remember Japan, and then they were going to raise rates, and we were all going to go to zero. then we bounced, and then we came back to that area, defended it again, hit that area again, defended. So I'm getting tighter and tighter in there, and you're getting these like rallies, right? And they're getting smaller and smaller. They're not getting bigger. That's what you want to look for too, because it's like a coil. And then you start seeing the volume, and you probably saw this, but I'll just point it out because I think it's interesting. I think it's worth our time. I love when we can do stuff together. Yay. You see how your volume's dropping during this period of time? See how your volume's kind of starting to do this and go a little bit higher? You want to pay attention to that. So people just think volume. They just go, oh, I just need big volume. It's all relative. Relative volume in regards to where the VIX is and everything else is so much more important than just where's the volume. Like relative volumes where it's at. That's where all the cool kids are at. So I just thought it was pretty fascinating that like this held and everything dropping and all the tariffs and all the regulations and everything else. And this thing's like, yeah, whatever, boomers, we're not going any lower. This is it. I thought it was fascinating. I don't know, maybe I'm a nerd, but like the fact that this is where the SOX is and that the SOX couldn't break on that, like like this is disgusting. Like left shoulder, head, right shoulder, neckline breaks, and then the video's like, now we're done. I showed this, or I went long the SOSX yesterday, which I hate doing when it's up. And it obviously didn't work. I was up for like a minute, like 15 minutes. It just didn't work. And it's pretty odd on a day like yesterday. So that's why I'm saying at best, at worst, I think we're oversold. At best, I think you're trying to put in a bottom. And that usually means the retest of a bottom, and then you go from there. GRR, I'll probably get asked about. And then, kind of go from there. But I should probably go back to this for a second. Where is that? That's the video. And just so people have these, and they can go there, take a look at it. But mark off the levels. But the big ones, obviously, I mean, it's not, it's not rocket science where they're going to be. I don't think it is. But I would definitely want to watch that like a hawk. I certainly want to watch that level right there. And see how you go. I mean, they're the big ones for me today more than anything. And if you get through that, I think it's realistic that you can get back up here like super quick. It's like 112. I think it's 112.40. Isn't that it? It's like right up here somewhere, like right around there. Like there it is, 112.43. I need a life. But it's right here. You can say it over and over again. Let me just get that out there. And then the MSTR, go through this one. You guys are all going to ask me about this too. Same thing, same super reheated, pre-market, these things trade up in Asia. You can see that level right here, and then they roll over. I thought, again, the bounce yesterday and some of this stuff was just really fascinating. I did not expect that at all. I certainly didn't expect it at names like Coin, which bounced really pretty hard. So I thought that was really good as well. I was really surprised by that. I mean, you shouldn't have bounced like this, and you did. So when you see stuff like that, you see behavior that you shouldn't have, and you have it, it's a good sign, man. So do with that what you will. I think the bigger issue is going to be the 10 a.m. data and then how we react to the JOLTs number. So what you want to do with that data is just watch the market, and you can already see how the bond market's acting. I think the bond market's pretty much the easiest trade out there right now. I just do. I've been saying that for some time. It just doesn't make any sense. Like if things are going to be bad and you're going to go into recession, or things are going to get worse, like yield, just buy yield. Just buy anything with yield because he's going to have to cut rates. And then the other side is, I know people are buying gold like crazy. And like every day it's going up and it's going up and it's going up. Like I get it, but there's going to be a payment to at the end of this. So I'd be careful. People are trading silver as well. I don't know. Look at copper. Hold on. That's not copper. Hold on. Right. Everybody had to get in copper. They're down 10% copper. from that. I mean, you're getting to that point where you're going to have a blow off on gold. And people are like, no, you don't understand. I'm like, you're going to have a blow off in gold. You know, gold had the best quarter it's ever had since 1986. And people in retail is like pouring into it. That's not how any of this works. So I'm not saying that it's not going to, you know, hold some level, but it's getting to that point where you just want to be very, very careful, in my opinion. But what do I know? What's up, John? Yeah, I think the insurance names make the most sense. I do think the insurance names, you know, make the most sense. I can't touch things that blow off tops like that. I do. I think that they make I really do like a lot of these names. I think this looks great. This was one that we traded. Some of these names just look fantastic. So I think we're up like 11 or 12 in this one. Bought at 72 when everyone's like, oh, progressive, boo. We were like, yay. But some of these names look just absolutely fantastic. Like this gave you the deal of a lifetime yesterday. You have to think about it. Like these are industries that have no one's paying attention to them. No one's telling you that they're going after them. All these like property and casualty places, like nobody wants to mess with them because they don't want them out of their states. California's like, please come back. So it is what it is. Now, eventually, I think the whole space should be, you know, deregulated from a standpoint of like allowing competition all over the place, smaller companies to compete. I think there's a way to do this to get the margins down of these businesses to allow, you know, competition everywhere, but nobody's going after them, man. Like no one. So it is what it is. And I think that's a good thing for the stock prices. So I think that is the space, the CELHs of the world, and the monsters of the world. I see it. Like they're literally, especially this one. If you really look at this, like it's pretty like the exact opposite of what the NASDAQ has done. So I get it. It's just not really my kind of trade up here. It just isn't, but I understand it. There's another one that guys were buying in the PRMB or something. This one, they were buying this one as well. And you'd see from like that March 10th, 11th, it's just been, I don't even think you had a down day, did you? You had like one where it like, well, we're just not going to go up today. But some of these names, they're just on fire. Like, look at the volume here. Like, it's just crazy. And for whatever reason, like that's what they're doing. They're buying these names. So it is what it is. And that's good, I guess. We definitely did not go out. Morning from Denver, morning from Miami. What's up, Julian? Morning from Montreal. Montreal is beautiful. Great town. About PMI, which you mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I don't know. No idea, man. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Me? I don't know. I don't have a clue why I would have mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Honestly, I truly do not remember me mentioning this a couple of weeks ago. MNMD? This one? Maybe I mentioned this. I might have mentioned that. Because I think this makes a lot of sense with the current administration, but say. What's up, Ian? What's up, Dan? Yeah, I mean, these kinds of names I think do make sense. I'm more interested in what the dollar is going to do before I start buying foreign companies, but it does make sense. I mean, a lot of this stuff does make sense. You know, a lot of it does. Today 55 already. Thanks, man. Yeah, well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You know, when you start to think about it. But you had a ton of buying in here, and then it just dried up. So I don't know. I'm watching it. You got to at least get over this. You know, I got to get over these levels. to see, like, are you really going to hold? I see the whole unwind. I mean, I get it. You know, tries to get over, fails, tries to get over, fails, undercut. There's your higher high. It's right here. Right. So there's that 81 and you're over. And then you come back down, you have earnings, and then you hold that. You're like, oh, okay. So we held, like, there it is. Like, you held that 55 and they, 12, 22. So, like, it's perfect. It's literally perfect. But yeah, I don't know. And then you come after earnings. It's just not my kind of trade, but that's like a slow, like, we're just going to grind higher and you're going to get people throwing money in there and people are going to go, hey, I think we could gap fill. Well, if you can, it's like 50%. So it's definitely worth it. That makes sense to me. One of them's spinning off things. They're going to spin something off. What's up, Alan? I didn't see the news. There's clearly news. I missed it today. I don't know what it is. I have to really look at that. Really should have this on a watch list this morning. I'll do it later. I don't know what the news was. I have to look into it. I don't know what it is. United States Cellular. I mean, it's just a grind, man. No volume, but that's just a grind. Very little to say about that one, Alan. Johnson again. I need to know what it is. Oh my God. Yes, I can. The MACDs, that's how I use it. I find great value in it, especially on a 4-hour. We went over that. What's up, Sig? Tesla, we went over. What's up, Tariq? What's up, Albino? Count your day spares, maybe. I don't know, man. I just think everyone's gonna be happy and go, oh, thank God it's over. They are putting out the thing, and they put it on Bloomberg again today, which I think is really good. That he wants this, like, really in depth. This country, this happens to. This country, that happens to. And his aides are basically telling him, like, we don't have enough time to put this together if you want to do this now. And so there's this idea of a global tariff structure that's being floated around. And they floated around on Bloomberg again today. So whenever I see something like that floated around on the weekend, I saw it floated around on Trading Desk late last week. Now it's on Bloomberg. I'm wondering if he comes out and says, this is the flat thing. You do this, we do this. And then everyone just goes, oh, okay, well, now we know what it is. So, like, I think it's the uncertainty, right? So, and that's why I was even surprised. Like, when I saw this with Ferrari, one of the guys in the room brought it up, like, hey, they came up with a plan. And I'm like, oh, that plan's, like, excuse my language, that plan sucks. But it worked because they got certainty out of it, right? That's why Ferrari went from like 404 or 400 down here and bounced and went up 40, 45 points. Because the certainty was there. So he comes out tomorrow and he's like, this is it. And this is what we're doing. And everybody goes, oh, okay, well, now we know what we're working with. So yeah, it could be a buy the news, or it could be this convoluted, like, dumpster fire. So I don't know, man. I just want it over. I think people will just be happy it's over, Stan. I don't know another way to say it. I know I will be. I don't know that I'm shorting that anytime soon. Bear Central, is it? PJs, yep. I think that if you look at the next 10 years, you'd have to look at, like, what companies are going to change the world the most in the next 10 years. I think that's pretty easy to spot. To me, it is. Moomer, I know, music's on. I got it off. If you think about that, yeah, like, Amazon's not going anywhere in 10 years, like, nowhere. It's like, I remember I had this meeting in, I mean, would I buy this if I didn't love myself? I remember I had this meeting once. The eyes. The eyes. I had this meeting once. It was like an 03 or 04, I want to say it was 04, and it was EZPW. What's up, Ed? And I remember going to it, and it was like the top ideas meeting, like one of these investment banks had it. I got an invitation to it and I went. Me and a buddy went, just listening to them speak. I've been very fortunate to get invited to stuff like that. So like, I remember leaving there and thinking in 10 years, there were two things that came out of that. Was one by China, and this was 04, one by China and Walmart's going to rule the world. And you look back at it 20 years later and it's like, look at what Walmart's done in that period of time. It was just so obvious that they were so far ahead of everybody. That's kind of interesting if it breaks out. Do you have any volume? Kind of, not really. Doing it in the earnings. Yes. Yeah. So what's that tell you though? Right? Yeah, they have a huge short position going into that. Back in the day. What's up, Falcon? I think there's too many people short this because it's the easiest short out there, because it's like the second tier brands that used to be cool, like Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. And I still like Tommy Hilfiger. Is that a boomer? Does that make me a boomer? Does it fade, or do people short the pop? It was a really good report and they raised guidance. I don't know. I'll tell you the one that I think is going to be fascinating is this. RH, because this thing got smoked, like absolutely, and it's coming out this week. This thing got smoked and it's coming out tomorrow night. And you were at that level where it's like, man, and they have a huge short position and it's thinly traded. And there have been times where people have been short this thing and it's not good. I think that the pain trade on these is like, if you just think about it from this perspective, here's earnings, right? Okay. And then you're down like 50% from last quarter. Like there's been times I bought Tesla like this when it's down like 40% quarter over quarter just from earnings. It better be a disaster here. It better be like and I'm not saying it's not going to be. I don't know the books, but man, oh man, when you see that kind of stuff, you know, you want to pay attention to that and kind of go from there. So I'm going to have to jump here, guys. I said by 9, go from there. What's up, Dexter? Yeah, sure. I'll do that real quick. We didn't know, and you want to do it real quick? Let's do it. Let's do it real quick. Back in the day. No, that was it. That's all we got to do right there. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? So it's got to hold. And I can't go near that. XBI is more diversified than IBB. You can go look at the holdings and the differences. IBB is more concentrated in the large names. XBI is in the smaller names. Let's keep rocking here. You're welcome, brother. Have a great day. Yeah, here. Breath. Open anyway. Yes. That one is S5FI. You can screenshot them. 250, 20, and the 5. You can screenshot them. Same things exist for the NASDAQ, by the way. Okay. Really. I read a really interesting report that the drug's not as great as people think it is, and it's just the calorie restriction that's doing it, but I don't know. I don't think it matters. You did your undercut and you held. I don't know that I'd go near that. Rocket, I wouldn't touch. It feels like that, brother. I just want it over. My favorite boomer quad. All right, I got to jump, guys. Trade to win today. Make good choices.